Well, Chris and Vlad and myself, we spent some good time yesterday. It was cold. Chris was even colder than I was. But we got the job done we set out to do. The lowering links are on. We are ready for the next part of the project. I got to paint the two sides of the seat, the upper and lower. And I'm trying to think, too cold to be hanging around out here this morning. I'm trying to think, this is what's going to happen when Chris eventually gets on the bike. She is going to just be sitting here and going, oh, I love my girl. See, that relationship yesterday was put to the limit. Anyway, this is her pride and joy, and I'm glad we got it just a little bit nicer for her. She'll enjoy riding it, and when she takes it home, it'll be safer. But she still has parts coming. I still have the tire valve. I hope she gets that to me. She was not happy with the tire valves she bought, so no sense changing them. And I'm trying to think about, we got a couple more parts on this I wanted to clean up. But overall, we made a lot of progress yesterday. Yesterday was a pretty special day. And that old footage that I've been putting at the end of the videos, I hope, that carbon fiber repair stuff, that was 10 years ago. I feel old. I can't believe it, I feel old. Maybe because I am old. And when I come out in the morning and change these battery charges and sit out here and shiver and shake for a few minutes, I think, wow. When I put the lowering link on this bike, it made it so much more comfortable for me to ride. And now if you're a track rat and all you want to do is have a bike that goes a little bit faster in the corners, well, you put your money into tires, but at my age, I put my money into comfort and enjoyment. And it's really a shame when you kind of fall in love with a bike, especially if you're a young guy, you fall in love with a bike that looks all sexy and cute, and you're dreaming about it and you fall in love with it, and then you go for a ride, and after 100 miles your back hurts, your knees hurt, your legs hurt, you can't see out the mirrors, and then you start thinking, I should have bought a different bike. And I know, because I've done that. And the modifications I've made to all my bikes, they're just basically to suit me. They're not made to make the bike go faster in any way or be cuter. They're made so that I enjoy riding it. The mirrors I can see out of, comfortable seats. When a bike isn't comfortable to ride or enjoyable, I'm not sure what the point is. And I know for Chris, because I've ridden with her for 10 years, I know this thing is going to make her a lot happier when she's riding a bike, especially at the end of a ride. And it was a long time before I got my R1. In fact, when I look back at the footage 10 years ago when I was riding around with clip-ons and an uncomfortable seat, I had made a bunch of carbon fiber parts. I did a lot of things that I thought were going to be long-term investments, and what happened, what I really needed was all the stuff I did in the last year. So, instead of staying out in this garage and freezing, I know I got ice on a pond to deal with this morning. I've got an iceberg floating around in the pond, and my birds are waiting to be fed. It's pretty funny. If we had a little model Titanic, we could run it into that iceberg. But when there's ice on a pond, it usually means we're coming up on the end of the 20s and into the teens. So it's cold. Now, once you come in from that garage, that's the next step every time. Now, this morning, instead of going for a motorcycle ride, I got one of my videos that I enjoy watching over and over again, hang gliding on Ipanema Beach in Brazil. Oh, that coffee is going to taste so good today, I can't believe it. Being outside. Yesterday, we really did freeze. I'm sure Chris will never forget that day. And she figured out why I have rugs in my garage. But this is why we do it all, to go riding when the weather changes. So I always like to start off the day, coffee, get warmed up, check out a ride, check out something, and then oogle my parts. Now this project is coming up on the home stretch, and I'm really happy the way this came out, of course. Every step of it, we have not taken one shortcut on this. But today what I want to do, it's really brutally cold out there again, I can't believe it. We're not getting much of a break on this. We have some parts for carbon fiber. Vlad wants to put a nice finish on them. We can work on that, but he's in no rush for that. But I did want to do the seat for the R6 today if I can. That'd be a good productive thing to get done today. Now, one of the things we bought, I realized right away, but Chris even mentioned it yesterday when she was laying on her back looking up at the bike. She said, oh, this thing has been repainted. It's got runs and drips, and yeah, well, that's true. So while I'm doing a seat, here would be the problem. If I paint this black, and this is going to be a whole different look. So what I'm going to do basically is paint both of the parts so they match. The seat will go up there, and then it won't be that obvious that we've repainted this. But this, of course, has been repainted. This is one of the ways you can tell if something's been repainted. The factory doesn't do that. That's not a factory job, and the factory would never paint over the R6 emblem. So just a few little tip-offs that this part has been painted. But we're going to be back. It's going to be back to being like a brand new seat. And for anybody that never took an R6 apart, those lowering links, there's some good information if you're ever thinking of. I know a lot of people have lowering links, and I've never heard anybody warn you about that one bolt in the front is really a problem to get off. Now I also have the parts for Vlad's, I don't know what I don't remember the name, Mondale. It's an Aprilia Mondale, whatever the hell that is. Vlad, you got to tell me what these parts are for. Anyway, it is an Aprilia, of course. He spent a lot of time getting stickers off of this and getting it taken care of, but two of these parts are going to require a lot of extra work, and I don't know because these are not all from the same manufacturer, so each one's going to be its own little separate adventure, but we'll try to put that on a future video if we can. So using simple green, step one as always, whatever I'm going to work on, whatever I'm going to paint, I like to get it clean. Now, this part, it's plastic. We're going to have to be very careful. I don't want to sand down into the raw plastic. And since it's already obviously been painted, I don't want to have a tremendous, any extra paint buildup on this. So the idea will be to get this sanded down with some 600, delicately, get it primed, and get it ready for its new finish. And like a lot of these parts, we got to figure a way to hold them. I got to figure a way where I'm going to put my mount so they can be drying. But now I explained to Chris when she was here how you could tell, I just gave her a little clue, how you could tell what parts of her bike have been repainted, because obviously when she bought it she might not even have known it had been repainted. But it's, for anybody that paints, it's not hard to figure out what the story is. So what I'm going to do is, with using 600 paper, get this just roughed up, get all the paint dust that's in here now off, and this should be 5-10 minutes, I don't even know. I don't try to keep track of time. I'm not big on keeping track of time when I'm doing this kind of work, or what happens is I don't enjoy it. It's supposed to be relaxing, supposed to be enjoyable. And keep in mind, on this part we're sanding paint. We're not sanding fiberglass, or in the case of the other part, gel coat. So, and I have no idea why they painted over that. That usually says R6 in there. But let's see. Just wanted to show some of the ways you can tell these little dits and dots and things. And here's some orange peel. That would almost tell you back here, you can see, that almost guarantees tells you nobody wet sanded this. Nobody really did the prep that was necessary to do a correct job. And it's always the case with anything. When when it's your motorcycle, you're always free to do whatever you want. But a lot of times, the point I always try to make is to do what's really works well and it's going to be nice. Is not a lot much more work than doing a schmuck job. So, or just using a spray can of Rust-Oleum or something. It isn't that much more time to do it. Okay, we're ready for some primer. And it looks like the weather's cooperating, except it's really cold out there. That's the only thing we're dealing with today. It's cold. Now sometimes these odd-shaped parts, the hardest thing is to figure out how you can get a bolt or something in them to hold them while you're painting them. Because this is a part, it would almost be impossible to hold it at the same time you're painting it. So this is the way that it looked like it would work. See, these parts are so flimsy, if I hold it by that part, I may break it. This is the solidest part to hold it by, so I'm going to try to hold it by that. I took out the Zeus fittings, and that's pretty much, well, I guess we don't have a choice. That's the army we go to war with, right there. It's ready to prime. And because we're going over old paint and plastic, in this case the other part is gel coated, this is the way I found to minimize the chance we're going to have a bust or fisheyes, or that the paint is going to peel off. Because this type of, well, actually all primer, it acts like glue to hold the paint to the part. But the part has to be etched and scratched. In this case we did it with 600. This should give us a good base for the black paint. Alright, that's going to dry up by a heating vent now. That should dry beautifully. I'm really hoping we can get the black on there today too. It's warming up a little bit. Must be up over freezing by now. Now the other part, this is the new part she just bought. This is just injection molded plastic. It's got a lot of little thin tabs on it, so I'm going to have, this is a delicate part actually. So the first thing is I want to scuff this with 600. I don't want anything, if I were to paint over that, paint's going to peel off eventually, more than likely. Now, it'll be a little bit labor intensive to get this sanded with 600, because there's a lot of little edges and angles and corners. And I don't want a year from now the paint start peeling up, and especially if you know, Chris does some more track days or whatever, I want to be the paint's not going to come flying off at 100 miles an hour. So I'm sanding this with 600 also, just like the other part. I need to have the surface scuffed. If a person is painting the first time you're ever painting a part like this or whatever, I would suggest you never paint. The golden rule, the general rule that you follow is you never paint anything shiny. You always want to paint something that's got scuffing scratches in it. And in the worst of all worlds, if the scratches are too big, you put on 2 coats of primer and that takes care of that. But you never, and I know some people, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know some people that do like to paint with a minimum of preparation, and sometimes you get a halfway decent result, but you don't stack the deck in your favor, that years later, you know, your honey pie is going to be riding down the track and you're going to be laying down on the gas tank and all of a sudden, whoop, the paint comes off the fairing or something. I don't know. It's not, we never try to be critical on the information I'm sharing on video. Being critical is of no value to anybody. But if you don't understand the basics, if you think you can paint something shiny, you almost set yourself up for some kind of failure somewhere in the future. So here I'm going to spend, and I'll spend on this part a lot of time because there are a lot of little nooks and crannies. And I may have to get down in here. I don't want, see, once paint starts peeling up around a bolt hole, you tighten a bolt, it cracks. Then if this isn't prepped, the paint comes off and it can make you crazy. Now here's some really cheap insurance and some good technology. At the very end of, when you think you have everything scuffed, go around the whole edge, radius the edge, because paint tends to crack on a razor blade edge. So this is going to require about a 5-minute thing of sanding around edges and around all these little bolt holes. But it's really going to stack the deck in our favor big time. Big time. That this is not going to be a problem somewhere down the road. Now, you know, because this is a bike I'm sure Chris is going to keep for a long time, maybe forever. Maybe like me, she'll, you know, she'll fall in love. Looks like she loves it now, to be honest. Not so sure about that kissing the bike thing. I like petting the nose, but I'm not so sure about that kissing the nose like yesterday when she left here. Chris, we're watching every move you make. But anyway, the thing I wanted to really share And I've learned it for many, many, many years. Paint does not like razor edges. Paint likes nice, smooth radiuses. It does not like smooth surfaces. It likes etched, scratched surfaces. Even around in here, it's under the seat where you're never going to see it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't want the paint peeling under the seat. Even up around here, wherever I can get, anything I can get scratched. That would be nice, and I understand there's other things involved besides what we're doing here, but it would be nice if when they made the mold for these parts, they put an etched surface on it. Even so, you'd have to sand it, believe me. That's a pipe dream. That's not going to happen. But this part went out and we're ready. I'm ready to dry it off, tack rag it, and go get some primer on it, and then it'll be time for another coffee break, because we're trying to take advantage of the fact this day is actually a pretty good painting day. I'm not disappointed at all. I never mind dealing with cold, as long as it's not too far below freezing. And right now it's coming up on, it's going to be above freezing by the time I get out the paint. And I think in a perfect world today, what's going to happen if this plays out the way I want? We'll have these parts in black, and tomorrow we'll work on Vlad's parts where we're shooting clear, and we'll be able to shoot all the clear in one shot. So that would be a nice goal, to spread this out over 2 days. And I don't like rushing. Rushing never produces good work. But getting this part in black today, and if I do have a little bit of time, I'll look for some funny footage from those old videos. Boy, I got to thank Ray over and over again. There is such good stuff, and I know Luciano's got a bunch of them. I hope he finds them. I hope he hasn't used them for flying saucers for the dog or something. But back 10 years ago, we had some funny stuff happen, and it's wonderful looking back at 10 years ago. My involvement with motorcycles was very different, and it's always fun, but everybody's is. Nobody stays the same. An example is my RDs. They floated my boat right now. The only reason they were fun, everybody had an RD, so you could go and take off from lights and stuff. Who would do that now when everybody's got a bike like this, a modern bike with ABS and 100 horsepower and everything? It changes your enjoyment of the motorcycle. And my enjoyment has evolved to the point where what I enjoy most is having a really, really clean motorcycle. So once again, it looks like this is the solidest part I can hold this from, so I'm going to get a long bolt, another pair of vice grips, and make a reliable way of holding it while I'm painting it. If I grab it from here, it's going to go in the wind. And over here, I'm not so sure. But it looks like that's very convenient that we have that spot that I can make my, what I call a handle. Every part you paint, you really need a handle. Okay, the objective is to get 2 nice thin coats. We don't need it. We're not filling in any Bondo or anything. Just going to act as glue for the black paint. And of course, that can go up by a heating vent and dry. Now that's ready to put down by the heating vent, and we're going to go have a cup of coffee while that dries up at least 20 minutes. We're ready to paint some black on that. It looked like it came out real good, and it has warmed up a bit. Oh boy, when that heat kicks on, that primer will be dry in 15-20 minutes, and we're ready to paint some black. Wow, we're really taking good use of the day, and these parts are going to be perfect when we're done. Now the compressor's building up pressure, and we're building up a head of steam in a coffee pot. This is going to be a good day. So after the parts have dried up and I've had coffee, I always look around to see if there are any bugs in my paint or something that I want to sand. Because, for example, if I had a bug in the summer, that's always a problem. Right now, not so much. That looks ready for the black. I got to fire up that noisy compressor, and I put my headphones on because that thing can make you crazy, but it really does pump some air. So one of the things I wanted to see is when this piece marries up to the piece underneath it, the piece underneath it is not damaged, and this will snap right on. Once we have the clear on this, we'll get the clear on it tomorrow. That'll bolt right up. We'll let it dry a day or so. Within 2 or 3 days, what I hope is going to happen, we'll have this bike ready for the final assembly. The final things that have to be done, and one of them is the valves, so I hope Chris doesn't forget to get the valves. She wanted black Curvy Girl valves, and they sent her green, gold ones by mistake, so she'll straighten that out. Anyway, these are going to be nice. We're taking advantage of a good day, and I want to get there and get the other part in black. Now what happened, I set up to do the black on this part, and I had not seen it down in the cellar. I had not, because the lighting is different. I took it out in the sun, and I saw I could still see the edge. Now when they make these parts, the mold comes together and there's always a molding edge. So I did some sanding, took some 600 sandpaper and sanded it. I'll put another coat of primer. And this is what's nice about doing stuff in the middle of the winter. I'm not in a rush to see this done. I want to get it done right. Now, once that dries, I'll see if it needs another coat. That looks like it's going to be fine. And what I did, just to make sure, I did the other side too. But anytime you can touch up things, if they're not perfect in primer, that's the perfect time to touch them up. Because it's easy to fix them. Now we'll give that 20 minutes to dry, and then we'll see if that worked. Now this is why I always look in the shop here. I have fluorescent lighting, but every once in a while I miss something. I take it out in the sun and I see it, and I did not see that. But that's okay. It's okay. The sooner you can catch an error that you want to fix. Right now, if I saw a spot in the black, yeah, I could and just touch it up. But it's easier the sooner you can catch it. It's like building a house. The sooner you can get the foundation straight, everything else will be straight. Then that's a valuable lesson to learn. And right up to the point that parts are buffed out, installed on a motorcycle, and you ride it, there's still always little things you can touch up or repolish or whatever. It's endless. Now the idea was to get on thin coats, not get any runs and not have any chance the thinner would go down and disturb or melt the plastic. And we've got that. Looks like we're fine. This will be ready for clear tomorrow. Well, those parts are going to sit up there by the heating vent overnight. That's going to be tomorrow. They will be ready for some clear. Now if we do get to work on Vlad's parts, do some clear on that, we can actually double up and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But too late today to get started on that. We have to go get our grandson. So today worked out great. We have the seat parts pretty much ready for the clear. We'll check them in the morning, make sure everything dried up. I don't see any reason we would have a problem. But I'm trying to plan 1 day ahead of time, and I could do all that clear in 1 day. Well, Vlad's parts are going to require a lot of prep. It may be 2 days. Well, we're going to find out, but this was a good day, and I didn't expect it. And of course, what I'm going to try to do tonight when I edit this, I'm going to look around for some footage that I have to find a third part, and it's in a stack of DVDs. The third part of that muffler, because I know even Dallas likes that. And I've got some other footage too that I wanted to look at. It shows my garage from, let's see, it would be 2009, 29, and the garage is empty. There's no motorcycles. Only the R1 and the Suzuki, and they're not even talking to each other. And I'm riding a bike with clip-ons, and I made a lot of carbon fiber parts for that bike, so I gotta see if I can find that footage somewhere. Somewhere in there it is. Anyway, I'll look for it tonight. In the meantime, this was a good day, a day worth spending. And Chris, I know you're gonna, when you sit on that seat that's just a little bit lower, wow. When I sat on your bike this morning, it felt great. It felt like my R1. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed what's at the end of this, and thanks for watching. On one side of our backyard we're growing corn and tomatoes, and it's early in the season. Nothing's come up yet. The other side, Karen has her flower garden. We've got all these pavers, and it's paved all the way over to the neighbor's yard. Totally paved. Got the little barbecue going on there. And Karen's pride and joy. Now we probably won't see him today, but we have a pet rabbit that he's out here every morning and every night, just hanging out, eating things randomly, and we let him. Well, we don't really let him. We try to discourage him, but anyway, Karen's got all these fancy flower baskets. Marilyn, I bet you've got flowers growing in Florida like this all the time. Our fish pond, which we've had for about 10 years now. Little waterfalls. My son Craig and I did all the digging here. We kind of did this all ourselves, even over a span of a couple of years. The fish that are in the pond have all been born in the pond. All their parents have been born in the pond. We're on about the 5th generation of fish here. And we have a nice picnic table, nice little area there for when we have barbecues in the summer and the fall mainly. And it's looking like it's almost time to feed the fish here. And one of the nice fun things about having a little pond is, of course, feeding the fish. 3 times a day. When we're away, our neighbors feed the fish for us. The kids all like to take turns coming over and feeding the fish. And of course, they look hungry. Now this pond usually freezes up in the winter, and we have to keep a bubbler going to keep keep that the air, the oxygen is, there's got to be a hole in the ice all winter. But they're all cold water fish. Koi, rabunkins, shabunkins. Now one of the things in the last year that I've done, in about maybe a year and a half, is I had the old Suzuki, which Frank has already, he's ridden that many times. I put a little bit of work into restoring it. Tried to do a nice job. Did a lot of aluminum polishing. I set up my own polishing wheel, did all the polishing myself. None of my bikes, Karen doesn't ride, so none of them are set up with foot pegs or passenger pegs. Everything's set up just for me. And I would not want to be, at this point in my life, be taking any kids for rides or anything. I made these carbon fiber parts. Actually, these are herringbone. You can get a look at that. Kenny Augustine helped me. We did some jetting and made some little changes to the carburetors that made the bike just run a little bit better. Nothing night and day. Made a carbon fiber chain guard. And these, of course, is what started this all, making a carbon fiber mufflers. Now what had happened is Frank had an exhaust system, but I didn't know he had an exhaust system. And I spent quite a bit of time. I did exactly what we're doing with your SV. Molded right over the top, made the outlet pieces out of a funnel mold. I actually molded them from a funnel. Try to make them look a little bit more like in keeping with the era of the bike. It's 26 years old. It's historic. I never have to register or inspect it again. And it cost me about $90 a year to insure it, for which I get to ride about 3,000 miles. That's about the amount I normally would ride anyway over the years. I made the seat from scratch. Try to make it like a couple of years ago I had some real back problems and I was really uncomfortable, and I made this. The original thing was I had a piece of foam rubber here to cushion my back, and it turned out from years ago into a chiropractor it's gotten to the point where I can ride it now, and so I just made that part out of same herringbone we're going to use to make your mufflers. And so it's 26 going on 27 years now. I've been the only owner, and except maybe for Frank and 4 or 5 other people, the only person that's ever really put any mileage on it. I did the brake modification, the fork modification to bring it up to spec. Did quite a bit of little things that you really don't even see. One of them was taken and I put a brand new clutch in, even though it didn't need it. It was only slipping under the rarest of conditions, and I didn't want all that goop getting in the oil. Spent a lot of time getting it done right, but pulling all these covers off. And on a GS, this cover here, where the chain actually goes into the side of the motor, is when you take that off, you could die. There's so much grease in there and dirt and everything. Soaked it overnight, cleaned it, polished it. Polished these pieces. They weren't polished, that normally hold the mufflers and the foot pegs on. And then once I had this all done, to be honest, I was bored. And what I wanted to do is buy me a super bike. Before I die, I actually went to see this movie called The Bucket List. Don't miss that movie. And I said, you know, all my life I've always wanted to have a really fast bike. Now, needless to say, I'm too old to ride as fast as I think I can, but I really wanted, I went to the Javits show, went to the motorcycle show, and I decided I really want to have a 10 or a 9-second bike, and of which there are several to choose from. Local dealer, Motorcycle Mall, got in an R1, and I had never sat on one. And when I sat on it, it was way better for me. Now, with my short legs and my body size, it was way better than any of the competition. Now, it's got the cross-plane engine, and I wasn't aware at the time just how good that engine was, but from having done my homework, and I think I've really made a good choice. Now, the stock R1 has this hokey thing back here. I made my own thing that on the back end. The thing that comes with the bike looks like an erector set. In fact, what I've done is I've got a bucket up here. It's a dumpster, in fact, and it's full of the parts that I took off the bike. I took the back pegs off. These parts, when you buy them from Yamaha, aren't really this nice. This has a really beautiful finish on it. It's actually nicer than the paint. And they're about 400 bucks. I made those. I made both of them, in fact. I made the seat, which is not even available from Yamaha. The seat is about 2 inches lower than a stock seat. And I padded it with some of the stuff that used to be on TZ from the old racing days. TZ Yamaha 750s had that kind of seat, and 350s. I bought these things that, for me, made the bike so much more comfortable. They're called SWAT bars. Now, the SWAT bars raise the handlebars about 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches over stock. I got a different master cylinder, a much smaller one, so I could read the instruments easier. And of course, made all these little brackets out of carbon fiber. On this bike, these come from the factory aluminum. I made them out of carbon fiber. Again, that's herringbone. I had a real issue that I didn't think was going to be important, but it turned out to be important, and that's the adjustment of the shift lever. Now, with my unique fat body, or whatever it is, I really needed to have that lowered as low as I could get it. And with the seat lowered, the pegs, you can lower them. So I've got this bike pretty much set up for me. I've got these adjustable little RV mirrors these are absolutely worth their weight in gold when you have a sport bike, because as you sit on it, you really, this much of it is your shoulder. These mirrors, if I designed the bike, would be out another 1.5 inches, 2 inches. But of course I know they don't design the bike for me. They design it for somebody that buys one every year or whatever. Now, I really like the look of the bike. It's aggressive looking. One of my plans is over the next year
maybe over the winter. I was going to make I've got 2 Ferrari aeroplanes. I was going to make a Ferrari Yamaha R1. In other words, pull all the parts that are blue off, paint them red, get the wheels done, and of course I've got the real Ferrari paint, and right here just put the little Ferrari Scuderia Ferrari thing, just like on the model planes that I've done. But again, that's all hypothetical right now. I made up the little heel piece and a little mount because I don't have foot pegs to mount the back little cylinder piece on. Fit a back brake, made that the heel guard out of carbon fiber. I think your friend up there in Pompton Lakes or wherever he lives, Pequannock, he wanted some heel guards made. And I have some spares. I just need to connect with them. I haven't had time to do it yet. Now what I typically do, and I do the same thing, I don't vary it too much. Karen and I sit on a porch and have lunch. And usually around 1:30, I get out on a bike and I try to put 100, 115 miles on it without stopping, because at about 120 it'll run short on gas. And I like to buy gas from the same dealer here all the time, so I try to whizzle it around to get back here. We've got, I think, 1,200 miles on it so far. It's broken in as per the Yamaha book. I've got the factory manual here. So I never do anything without consulting the manual first, and I got me a pair of, I hope, really good gloves. These are really comfortable. Got a good quality helmet. And I'm hoping over the course of the summer, Frank and I'll get to do some riding. I try to do it this way. I ride this bike 3 times and ride this one once. So that would give me, if I'm riding 100 miles a day, which is about an average. I've ridden as little as 80 or as much as, I've actually gone 150 one day when I was breaking it in. I just wanted to get the miles on it. I had a friend of mine carpet the garage, so anytime we're working on the bikes, we're working on carpet. There's no heat out here, but it's relatively nice. It's well lit. I have a come along that when I want to, I can pick the whole bike up off the floor and do work on it. And we got a different link. The suspension link has 2 settings. It's I don't know if you can see it in the picture. So that what happens is the back end of the bike is about 3/4 of an inch lower than stock, which in combination with the seat and the bars up makes for a pretty nice riding bike. It's actually pretty comfortable. And this is what I try to do every day that it's appropriate, that it's really minimum chance of rain. And I've had lunch. The R1 dashboard is really nice. Fuel injected, of course.